Hello everyone. Welcome to Nishta Season 2. I am Suba Lakshminarasimhan, Executive Leadership Coach. We bring in Nishta with an intention to demystify leadership. Here on this platform, we invite leaders from varied industries with extensive experience leading self, people, and businesses. Today, we have an awesome leader with us, Dharani Karthikeyan, the Vice President and the Global Head of Engineering for Analytics in SAP. Dharani is an empathetic leader and a visionary. With 2 decades of industry experience, Dharani is known for customer focused and result oriented business leadership. Her hands on leadership approach has resulted in strong employee engagement and increased customer experience. Dharani was awarded Grand Champion Award for Leadership in SAP Labs India and was also top 3 finalist at Women in Tech Award from Weequity in 2022. Dharani is passionate about delivering highly scalable software combined with consumer grade user experience for large scale enterprises. She specializes in organizational and strategic planning, software engineering, delivery, execution, and building high performance teams. She has strong domain expertise in analytics, middleware, orchestration, and enterprise mobility, and is a certified design thinking coach. Dharani also co leads the Technology and Innovation India Leadership Forum, bringing together 1,500 plus colleagues. She loves to contribute to nation building activities and also IT co-chairman for South India chapter for Association of Chambers and Commerce. She is also an avid active speaker in the space of data and analytics in various external forums. Outside of work, she enjoys yoga and gardening. Welcome, Dharani. Thank you so much for being a part of the journey of Nishta. As I mentioned, Nishta, I launched it with an intention to demystify leadership, where I invite all the leaders from diverse backgrounds and then the industries to understand what exactly they call leadership as, and also to understand leadership from their journey, from their lens. Welcome again, Dharani.
Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on your show, Suba. It's been a pleasure to be part of your series. And when I think of leadership, I always think of people first, because leadership is all about bringing the people together and helping them to move towards a single objective. And for me, leadership always resonates well with empathy. Right? The way I've been working in the past 20 years, Shubha, it's just that I have a lot of connect with the people. I take my time out and spend time with each and every one of my colleagues to understand their perspective, empathize with them, and also continuously having a positive conversation so that we are all able to move towards a single objective. Yeah. And the other aspects, what I also like being with people is that you get to learn a lot. Leadership is never ever it's one way. It's always a two-way street. More you listen to the people, more inputs you would be able to get, and more perspectives you can then form in order to create a good vision for the organization.
Absolutely. As I'm listening to you, Dharani, right, that empathy is the word which is coming again and again. When you say that people are very important to me, people make that definition behind that word leadership, right? I'm also kind of reminded of level 5 leadership defined by Jim Collins, right? So, he has come up with, 5 different elements which makes somebody a level 5 leader. In that, the first element that what he brings out is a leader, before even talking about the strategy, working on any strategy, they bring in the right set of people. right? Then they talk about strategy, and then everything falls in place, or follows. That is what I could recall as I'm listening to you. And while introducing, I also saw that you are a design thinking coach. Yeah. The concept itself is revolved, it's designed revolving around the word empathy, right? And you also again mentioned it in your share. This particular word empathy, what does it mean to you, Dharani?
Yeah. As I mentioned, Shubha, empathy is very, very key for success of any person, both in professional and also in personal life. It's, if you look at a big picture, it's not so different between your home and office, right? So as long as you have empathy, you show that care and concern for the people around you, they would start trusting you more. Yeah. And especially if I now look at the office settings, right? And that's where I really like design thinking, because design thinking is all about dwelling and understanding the problem statement before jumping into the solution. Very often, because of the way we have been brought up and the way we also went through our education, very often we are so quick at finding solutions but not understanding the problem statement, right? So design thinking give a very structured way for that. And a big problem that typically every organization faces is that while we are looking at solution, we do not think often from a customer perspective. And that's where, when you have empathy towards your customer, then you start understanding what is their needs, what are their problem statements, and then you would be able to rightfully design the solution accordingly.
Absolutely. You said that so beautifully, Dharani, here, right? See, when we start looking at everything with that empathetic lens, right, we will be able to better understand the pain points of what the other person is going through, right? When it comes to building a product or a service, of course, understanding the customer's pain point becomes the key, right? Unless until we understand that too, see, again, from their shoes, that's what we call it as empathy, right? From their perspective. At the same time, I also come across something excessive empathy when it comes to dealing with our teams, right? Our stakeholders. So what do you think about that? Where is that thin line between being empathetic and then going beyond, yeah, that empathetic line?
You're asking the right question, Shubha. There is a very thin line, right? The more you start becoming empathetic, you could also be sympathetic, right? There's always a thin line between empathy and sympathy.
Totally.
There's one thing for me which I always look at is the business objective and the vision of the company that we are working on, right? We are all working for a single objective of helping the company meet their vision and bringing out the products which is eventually becoming a market leader. So from that perspective, we have a clear business objective to meet. So as long as we are able to clearly state our vision to the entire organization, when I say vision, it's just not like next 1 year, 2 year, what do you want to be? In the next 5 years, how does your product look like? Who are your customers? What are the market you wanted to address, right? So having a clear view about the product vision and also translating that to yearly plan and yearly roadmap and telling that out clearly to the organization makes a big difference. Once the organization is clear about the objective that we are going to meet, then they would start understanding the big picture as well as the next immediate steps they will have to do, right? Once you have that good goal setting for the organization and you have the right people in mind, by and large, people will be able to meet the objectives that you would want to have. A lot of times, Shubha, I've seen the organization is a bit diluted primarily because they do not understand the priority. So I'm a big fan of prioritization. Every time I keep thinking about the priority of the organization and make sure it doesn't change every time. So typically at the year end, we relook at our business priorities and come up with the top 5 priorities that we as an organization want to meet in the next year. And I clearly call out in every meeting into my all hands, managers meet, coffee corner. I keep repeating this priority so that it imbibes into the people. So once our colleagues are clear about the priority and the objectives, then the organization is set. We don't have to worry about it. And that's where you don't have to worry about, being over empathetic, because as long as you have the right level of empathy and people knows what to deliver, the success will automatically come.
Wow. What is something that, standing out here in this conversation as of now, right, Dharani, is the clarity in which you are able to segregate everything. At the same time, there is an alignment, right? Of course, as you mentioned, there is a beautiful thin line between sympathy and empathy, right? That understanding can happen for leaders, any leader, right? Once they understand the bigger picture. There should be perfect clarity on why, first of all, an organization is having a specific vision, right? Why behind that what? Right, and then understanding the intricacies involved in that vision. See, this is an interesting conversation. Normally happens with a couple of my coaches as well, especially leaders. Right, many would be doing their job, right? Whatever is their written in the job description, and apart from that job description, whatever the initiatives that they contribute or they are part of, they think like, okay, this is what I am doing above and beyond, right? So where can we make that right alignment, right? Is by understanding that vision appropriately. And then connect that vision with, what your responsibilities are, what your role is in that organization, and then communicate that to your team. Yeah. So that is something that I'm visibly seeing here in your leadership as I was listening to you, right? So it starts from bigger picture, understanding that bigger picture, and then comes down to the, setting the goal, and then the task allocation, right? And then we are talking about the execution. Yeah. Many places, the mistake that I see is like the minute somebody creates some strategy without even spending any time in understanding the strategy, people jump into the execution mode. Right. That's where, as you said, the organization also gets into the diluted mode. As we are talking about, empathy and then the, strategy, executing that strategy, delivering, and how the vision needs to be understood by everybody. Right. There is another word that comes to my mind connecting all this. There is a particular word which is kind of bringing in some alignment here, is psychological safety. Yeah, it has become a buzzword. So what is your thoughts on or around this word, psychological safety, Dharani?
You said it well, Suba. In the last few years, it's become a buzzword. And especially I've seen after COVID, this word has become very predominant in the industry as well, because it's true, right? Whether you're working in office or working remotely, we as employees really look up at psychological safety being there so that we ourselves can first of all voice our concern, and then we are also creating a safety environment so that our colleagues are able to freely voice out their opinion, right? And again, linking back to my previous point, empathy plays a big role, right? As long as you're able to understand each other and also put yourself into other colleagues' shoes, then the empathy automatically comes and it becomes a safe environment. And also, there's few things what I've seen, Suba, is that especially now it's a hybrid world. We are not meeting everyone in office, right? Most of the time it's through Zoom and Teams. What I've seen is that very small things like when you start a meeting, start with a big smile. Yeah. So take things light, don't take it so seriously, and ask and genuinely ask how the other person is doing. A lot of times I've seen, you get into a call, the other person says, hey, how are you doing? And then just starts off with the next point, right? they don't even give you time to answer. So start with a smile and ask the other person how you're doing, and give a pause, listen to them genuinely, and then carry on from that. So that small meeting starter would go a long way in creating that environment so that people can voice what they're going through. Creating a safe space in order to create an environment where people are being open, honest, and also being bold is very important. Again, one of the other aspect I've seen is many of the leaders are so scared to show their vulnerability. But many times the leaders are also human, right? So it's okay to show your vulnerability. It's okay to share your both successes and failures. It's okay to show your strengths as well as weakness as well, right? So once the leader exhibits these kind of traits, then the team as well is encouraged automatically to show their true self. They don't have to put a mask, they can be themselves, right? Smaller things that leaders exhibit in their day-to-day work would go a long way in creating a good psychological safety environment so that people are able to voice their own opinion. And again, I've seen whenever there are conflicts within the team members, we just have to accept it's normal to have conflict, but always have a positive mindset when you're solving that conflict. Yeah? And again, another important aspect is that taking the time out to appreciate people, not just for the successes, but also the efforts they've put in. Even if a particular project or a task is not so successful, it's very important that the leaders recognize the efforts that the team has put in, irrespective of the outcome. So these are some of the tips and tricks, I would say, in order to create that psychologically safe environment.
What is coming up again and again, right? That empathy, and then how you are shaping yourself up as a people leader, right? Kind of you have, shared all the secrets behind your journey. That's how I'm looking at it. A smile is so precious, and it's not expensive, right? It's
Yes.
not like diamond where you have to really, chunk out a big money and then buy it. It's that easily available, precious gem which we all have, right? So when we are starting something with a smile, obviously, as you rightly mentioned, we exhibit that positive energy. The minute we exhibit that, even the person who is sitting at the other end of the table, if they have gone through something, for at least for a few seconds, they are going to feel a little relaxed and then, happy about being with us, sharing that space with us. Then followed by that listening. Yeah. I am a firm believer of deep listening. Listening to understand the other person, what exactly they want to speak, where exactly they are coming from. And then vulnerability. Again, I would say it's something that we all have it. We don't have to really undergo any training session to show vulnerable, right? So vulnerability is a part of our human evaluation, human beings being a human being. As long as we understand how to leverage that, yeah, that vulnerable state of ours to build resilience, right? Then that conflict management and everything is going to be easy,
Yes.
right?
I can add one more thing. This I always get reminded of one statement which I heard. There was a CEO who was telling this. He said, whenever you are in a tensed environment, right, or whenever the organization is going through a lot of issues or transitioning from a different phase to a different phase, right? Always think that we are not building nuclear reactors. It's okay to fail. The failure at the most will be, release is delayed or some issues, which is still manageable, because it's not that unlike nuclear reactors, if you fail, the reactor blasts, right, which is much more of a bad effect. So it's okay. All of us are in an environment where we are dealing with software and the products are still can be adaptable. So as long as we have that kind of a thought process in us that it's okay to fail, the whole situation changes. It becomes a much more positive environment where we also give a lot of freedom for failure and risk taking, and that would change the entire game.
Especially when, that fast-paced environment is another buzzword, right?
Yeah.
So when we say fast-paced, we could easily see that, feel that everybody is running, everybody is rushing, without even realizing where we are all rushing, where we are all running. Right? That is there. Because we are not taking any steps, backwards. If we can pause for a while, we don't have to stop, as you rightly said, right? Just because we are facing one failure, we are not going to end the story there, right? We are going to understand, okay, what are the mistakes, what went wrong, and then we are going to correct it and then move on. Probably the next product could be much better than what we initially planned, right? So that can happen only when we take that pause, go two steps back, and then look at the big picture, and then go nearer, look at the nuances. That's going to give us a better clarity than rushing, trying, failing, rushing, trying, failing, right? So this is something coming from a leader like you, is a it's a great message for all the Nishta audience, Dharani. Especially, thank you so much for calling it out here, right? I truly, truly appreciate that. So as we are talking about rushing and then taking a step back, then the next the word kind of popping up in my mind is innovation, right? Especially you're coming from this technology background. The organization is technology oriented, right? And innovation is it's a very important DNA that everybody has to kind of have now, right? So right from getting the grocery in 10 minutes to asking chat gpt, what should I make for breakfast today, right? Innovation is something that it has become a part of our life, right? So this particular word innovation, what sort of bell it rings in your mind, Dharani?
Yes, you are asking me a very favorite question, Shubha. I really love innovation. The reason is that if we lack innovation in the technology field, you and your product would be outdated very soon. So whether you like it or not, as a technologist, we should be able to innovate and renovate our products regularly. And the space we are in, especially with the Gen AI and all the innovation that's come up because of Gen AI, it opens up a beautiful door in which anybody could innovate. And especially with the Gen AI, just like you and all of us, I'm hooked onto the Gen AI. Every time I spend at least every day, if I talk about, probably 30% of my time, I spend on Gen AI, reading about it, playing with it, writing some scripts in order to understand the possibilities that we have with the technology. And again, as a leader, it's very, very important. We are being on top of the technology. It's the most exciting in the entire career. In the last 20 years I spent in the technological career, I feel this is the most innovative phase I've been in.
And with this innovation, there is one question that comes to me. Okay, if everybody starts innovating, right, what happens to the others, or where are we exactly leading? Because it brings in some sort of stress when it comes to upskilling oneself. When it comes to keeping in touch with the trend. Because as you rightly said, every minute something is. As we are speaking, in this 40 minutes, I'm sure 100 different product ideas would have been generated somewhere in some part of the world, right? So there is the stress, and then managing time. There are all these little challenges accumulate and then bring in a big challenge for the youngsters, right? Especially the young leaders. A few words from you, Dharani, for these young leaders to manage the stress and then their time, and then at the same time they have to upskill, they have to do their job, they have to continue to grow.
Sure, Shubha. I always believe that everybody has their unique potential. Yeah. A colleague will be able to execute well, code well. Another person would be able to do the visioning of the product well. Another person will be able to communicate well, right? So it's important that everybody spends time to understand the strengths of theirs. And once they find the strengths of theirs, then they should leverage the strength. And they don't have to worry about weakness, right? So very often I've seen people look at their weakness more, and they always try to improve on that, which also takes a long time. But it's important that everybody leverages strength, because in a team, it's important to have a diverse set of colleagues. And also when each and everyone brings in different skill set, different strengths, the team becomes stronger, right? So that's one thing, self-awareness, I would say, about their strengths. And also the second part of that is, what is their real interest in? They'll have to discover their interest in, and then they will also have to spend time apart from the core work, right? The core work, what they do is important, but what will also be a differentiator in the long time is that identifying the strengths and their interest area and spending time on that, so that at the end of 2 years or 5 years, they're able to be in a position that they want to, and they would like to be, right? So that's important. The self-awareness is something that everybody has to spend time and put up a clear development plan so that they know where they are going in. That's number 2. And also continuously look for learning opportunities. So that's where their proactiveness comes in. So very often I've seen, colleagues who are joining a team, they said, okay, fine, I'm working on this for quite some time. It's beginning to get bored, but they can also always look out for proactively for multiple opportunities which are there. It could be an opportunity to lead a small initiatives. It could be an opportunity to talk with customer. It could be an opportunity to mentor others, right? So always be proactive and spend your time apart from their core work, because then the work gets much more interesting. If you're looking and boxing yourself into the work that's been assigned, then that's not so interesting, right? So in a nutshell, I would say, if everybody are being self-aware, understand their strengths, and have a clear development plan of where they want to be, and also be proactive and look out for opportunities actively, then they would have a very good career.
Beautiful. So now if I have to put one word in which we can, kind of put in everything that you have said, right, is that self-awareness, right? Owning your growth. It's on in me and on me to design my path so that I grow, right? So that way, when we have been talking all these, serious stuff, yeah, something fun fact about you, which your colleagues even may not know, even though you're working with, they're all working with you for many, many years, but they do not know something about you. What would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question, Shubha. So, the two things which I really, really love doing is surrounding myself with plants and greens. I'm a big garden junkie, so I have hundreds of plants in my home, and most of the free time I have, you can catch me spending time in the garden. That's one thing. The second thing is my pet. I have a dog at home. He's a beagle. So he's a absolute stress buster for me. When I go to office and come back, I just play with him for the next 15 minutes. Then I'm in a totally different world. So yeah, garden and pet are two mantras which keeps me going.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I also, saw that you are a yoga practitioner.
Yes, yes.
Right.
I'm very specific about yoga. Come what may, I take out my time, either in the morning or evenings, and I have a very good yoga teacher who guides me very beautifully. So I just love doing yoga as well.
Wow. Such a pleasure interacting with you, Dharani. One specific vibe that I'm getting as I'm interacting with you is that calmness. Yeah. So there is a beautiful clarity which is coming out so well with that calm, nature of yours. Now I could see that, okay, there is a garden which is kind of keeping you in that space. Yeah. And of course, your pet, playing with the pet is almost like, having a baby at home, right? Even though the pet may be growing big, still it is your baby, right? So such a beautiful interaction. And, I have personally learned a lot, right? So thank you so much for your time. I look forward to, many such conversations in the future as well, Dharani.
Thanks for having me, Shubha. It was wonderful talking with you.
Thank you.